A five-star place like this isn't meant for dark-skinned people like you. Ashley Bennett's voice echoes through the Grandeur Plaza Hotel's marble lobby. Before the pregnant black woman can respond, Ashley tilts her glass. Ice-cold cranberry juice, dark red, full of ice cubes, pours directly onto the woman's head. The liquid cascades down her face, soaking her natural hair, drenching her $800 cream maternity dress. 60 guests watch, some gasp, others whisper and point. A middle-aged white man claps slowly, grinning. Two women giggle behind napkins. The manager rushes over and grabs the victim's wrist. "You're making a mess on our floor. Either clean yourself up in the bathroom or leave before I call security." Miranda Foster sits motionless, juice dripping onto her pregnant belly. Her hand touches a platinum wedding ring with unusual engravings. She picks up her phone. One call, one name. Ashley Bennett has no idea who she just humiliated or what's coming next. 5 minutes earlier, this had been different. Miranda Foster walked through the Grandeur Plaza's brass doors at 4:08. Her cream maternity dress whispered against marble. The Birkin on her shoulder cost 6 months of salary for most people. 8 months pregnant. She moved with quiet authority. Ashley Bennett intercepted her at the host stand. The white server positioned herself as a barrier, tray held between them. "Ma'am, the lounge is for hotel guests only. Are you staying with us?" Miranda smiled, patient. "I have a reservation, Miranda Foster, 4 o'clock. Ashley's eyes traveled from Miranda's face to the Birkin to the platinum wedding ring to her dark skin. The math didn't compute. "Let me verify that." She took longer than necessary, checking her tablet. Other guests, all white, walked directly past without being questioned. Stephen Palmer appeared, the manager, mid-40s, anxious about standards. "Mrs. Foster, I see a reservation, but it says VIP treatment, charged to the Castellano account. Are you associated with that account?" The pause dripped with suspicion. How does a black woman connect to New York's most powerful Italian crime family? "I'm Miranda Castellano Foster, my husband's family. I kept my maiden name professionally." Stephen's pause lasted too long. "And you're meeting someone?" Tea for one. As if a pregnant black woman enjoying solo tea was suspicious. "Of course, right this way." The table told the real story. Corner placement, hidden behind a plant, next to kitchen doors where servers rushed past constantly. The worst seat in 40 prime spots. Miranda sat without protest. She'd anticipated this. 20 years with the Castellano family taught her. Her last name opened doors, but her appearance slammed them shut. 410 became 420. 420 became 430. Around her, other guests received tiered trays and champagne. The couple at the window, seated after her, were already on their second pot of tea. Miranda's table, empty. No water, no menu, no acknowledgement. Carmen Rodriguez started toward her twice. Both times Stephen blocked her, gesturing toward the terrace. "Keep the Latina server away." Miranda didn't complain. She sat, counting mistakes, not minutes. Her phone buzzed repeatedly, face down. Messages from someone important, someone monitoring her. She let them wait. Patience was something you learned from dangerous men. At 4:32, Miranda raised her hand. Ashley walked past, made direct eye contact, kept walking. Carmen noticed. She moved toward Miranda's table, but Stephen materialized instantly, his hand on her elbow. "Carmen, terrace section now." "But she's been waiting." "I said now." Carmen met Miranda's eyes, apologetic, but rent was due in 5 days. She turned away. Miranda waited another 8 minutes. When Ashley finally approached, she carried a tray of dirty dishes from another table. She didn't set it down. "Yes?" Not "how may I help you," not "I apologize for the wait," just "yes," while holding literal garbage. Miranda kept her voice level. "I'd like to order the afternoon tea service, please." Ashley didn't write anything down. "We're running low on the traditional service. I can bring you a sandwich and coffee from the cafe downstairs." The afternoon tea, the signature service, $95 per person, was being denied. Sandwich and coffee was the $18 option for people who didn't belong. "I made a reservation specifically for afternoon tea. The full service." Ashley sighed. Heavy, theatrical. "Let me check if we have availability for that." She walked to the service station, didn't check anything, just stood there scrolling her phone for 3 minutes. At the table beside Miranda, A white woman dining alone received the full three-tier service. Crystal stand loaded with finger sandwiches, scones with clotted cream, delicate pastries. A server poured champagne with a flourish. When Ashley returned, she carried a single-tier tray. 4 triangular sandwiches, 2 scones, no pastries, no champagne. This is what we have available. Miranda looked at the neighboring table's tower of food, looked back at Ashley's meager offering. That's not the full afternoon tea service. Ma'am, this is what's available for your table. For your table, not available today. For your table. Around them, conversations dimmed. Other guests sensed conflict brewing. Some leaned in to listen. None intervened. Miranda pulled out her phone, not to complain on social media, to document. Evidence was instinct for a lawyer. She photographed the inadequate tray, then the full service at the next table. Ashley's voice sharpened. Ma'am, you can't take photos in the lounge. Hotel policy. I'm photographing my own table. It's disruptive to other guests. Stephen appeared as if summoned. Mrs. Foster, is there a problem? Miranda's patience was thinning, but her voice stayed calm. Yes. I reserved and paid for the full afternoon tea service. I'm receiving about 1/3 of what other guests are getting, and now I'm being told I can't document the disparity. Stephen lowered his voice, patronizing. Let's not make a scene. I'm sure we can resolve this privately. Perhaps in my office? I'm not making a scene. I'm sitting quietly, asking for what I paid for. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding about what the Castellano account includes. The Castellano account has unlimited credit here. Money isn't the issue. Treatment is. Stephen's jaw tightened. Around them, 20 conversations had stopped completely. This was better entertainment than tea. An older white couple at the window table whispered, loud enough to be heard. The wife, she should just accept what they're offering. The husband, these people always cause trouble. A businesswoman in a corner booth didn't look up from her phone but spoke to her companion. If she's unhappy, she should leave. Plenty of other places. A man in his 60s, expensive suit, pearls in his cufflinks, shook his head. I've been coming here for 20 years. Standards have really declined if they're letting just anyone in. No one told Ashley to bring the correct service. No one questioned why Miranda was being treated differently. The collective verdict was already in. The black woman was the problem. Miranda set her phone down. I'd like to speak with the general manager. Stephen's smile was ice. Mr. Hamilton is unavailable, but I assure you, as lounge manager, I have full authority to handle guest concerns. Translation, you're not important enough for the general manager. Ashley, emboldened by Stephen's support, reached across Miranda to grab the inadequate tray. Since you don't want this, I'll remove it. As she did, her other hand, the one holding a glass of cranberry juice, tipped, not accidentally, with controlled precision. Ice-cold liquid poured onto Miranda's head. The shock of it stole her breath. Cranberry juice cascaded down her face, soaking into her natural hair. Ice cubes slid down her neck inside her collar. The red liquid drenched her cream dress, spreading across the fabric like blood. It pooled on her pregnant belly, seeping through to her skin. The cold was shocking. The humiliation was worse. The lounge went silent. 60 guests, frozen. Ashley didn't apologize. She grabbed a cloth napkin and started roughly dabbing at Miranda's dress, touching her without permission, scrubbing at the fabric like she was wiping a dirty table. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. You shouldn't have been reaching across like that. Miranda pushed her hand away, gentle but firm. Don't touch me. Ashley's offense registered instantly. I'm trying to help. This is what happens when guests are difficult and don't follow basic courtesy. You poured that on me deliberately. Excuse me? I was clearing your table and you were in the way. Stephen inserted himself between them. Ladies, please, let's all calm down. But he faced Miranda, not Ashley. His body language made it clear who he thought was the problem. Mrs. Foster, I understand you're upset, but accidents happen in busy service environments. We'll comp your tea and send your dress to our dry cleaning service at no charge. Miranda's voice stayed level despite the juice dripping from her chin onto her chest. This isn't about dry cleaning. She deliberately poured that drink on me. I'm sure it felt that way in the moment. Stephen's tone was the verbal equivalent of patting her head. But Ashley has been with us for 3 years. She has an excellent record. She wouldn't intentionally harm a guest. I'm 8 months pregnant. She poured cranberry juice onto my stomach, in front of witnesses. Stephen raised his voice, addressing the lounge. Did anyone clearly see what happened here? The older couple suddenly found their scones fascinating. The businesswoman checked her phone. A society matron in pearls looked away, murmuring, I couldn't really see from here. The man with the cufflinks actually shook his head. Looked to me like she bumped the server's arm. A middle-aged man in a corner actually smirked, under his breath, but audible. Maybe she did reach across. They always exaggerate these things. Around the room, witnesses were rewriting history in real time. What they'd clearly seen was being transformed into ambiguity, doubt, and ultimately blame directed at Miranda. Carmen Rodriguez couldn't stay silent. She stepped forward, phone in hand. I saw it. Ashley reached across deliberately and tipped the glass, and I recorded it. The lounge temperature dropped 10 degrees. Stephen spun toward her. Carmen, you were assigned to the terrace section. You weren't even in this room. I came back in right as it happened, and I've been watching Ashley treat certain guests differently for months. Nobody does anything about it, so I started documenting. Ashley's face flushed red. You recorded me? That's a violation of my privacy. Carmen didn't flinch. New York is a one-party consent state. I can record in public spaces. I know my rights, and Mrs. Foster has a right to see what actually happened. Stephen's professionalism cracked. Carmen Rodriguez, you're suspended effective immediately. Leave the floor. But I'm a witness. Leave now. We'll discuss your employment status Monday. Carmen looked at Miranda. Her eyes said everything her mouth couldn't. I'm sorry, I tried, but I have rent to pay. She walked away, shoulders tight with anger and fear. Miranda sat alone again, soaked, humiliated. Witnesses silenced or transformed into willing participants in her degradation. Stephen crouched beside her table, voice low. Mrs. Foster, let's be reasonable. We'll refund your reservation, give you a $500 hotel credit, complimentary weekend in our presidential suite. But let's keep this between us. No social media, no reviews, just a regrettable misunderstanding between professionals. $500. That was the price of her dignity, apparently. You're asking me to be quiet. I'm offering fair compensation for an unfortunate incident. You're asking me to accept money so Ashley can pour drinks on the next black woman who doesn't look like she belongs, so you can keep your 5-star rating while treating people like me as second class. Stephen's voice hardened. Mrs. Foster, I'm aware your family has connections, but this hotel serves many prominent families, board members, city officials, international clients. Making this public would be complicated. For everyone. There it was, the threat beneath the politeness. I know who you are, so back down. Wrong move. Ashley, sensing Stephen's shift to intimidation, doubled down. Are you threatening us? Because we have lawyers too. If you post anything online that damages our reputation, we will sue for defamation. Miranda smiled. Small, cold, the kind of smile that should have warned them. I haven't posted anything. I'm sitting here in your establishment covered in cranberry juice that your employee poured on me. You're the ones making threats. But they weren't listening. Stephen and Ashley thought they held the power, the hotel's reputation, the board connections, the implicit legal threat. They didn't understand that Miranda's silence wasn't weakness. It was documentation, evidence collection, letting them incriminate themselves completely before she acted. Her phone buzzed again, insistent now. The messages were piling up. Someone important was waiting for confirmation that she was safe. Miranda picked it up. Not to call 911. Not to call her husband. She dialed a number she'd been given years ago with specific instructions. Only use in emergency. It rang once. Vincent, it's Miranda, Grandeur Plaza Lobby Lounge. I need you to make some calls. Her voice was quiet, steady, but something in it made Ashley's smirk falter. A pause as she listened. No, I'm fine. But the service here needs immediate attention. Yes, now would be good. She hung up. Ashley forced a laugh. Calling your lawyer? This is a waste of time. You bumped me, I reacted, and now you're trying to... Miranda looked at her directly. The first time she'd made full eye contact since the incident. I'd stop talking if I were you. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. And something in Miranda's tone, the complete lack of fear, the eerie calm, finally registered. Stephen's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. His face went pale. General manager, who never called during service hours unless something catastrophic was happening. Yes, Mr. Hamilton, Stephen's voice cracked. I'm in the lounge right now. Yes, sir, I understand. He looked at Miranda, really looked at her for the first time. Recognition was beginning to dawn. Around the lounge, conversations had stopped completely. 60 guests watched this drama unfold, phones discreetly angled to capture whatever happened next. Stephen ended his call. His hand trembled as he lowered the phone. Mrs. Castellano-Foster, if we could speak in my office. No. One word. Flat. Final. The elevator across the lobby dinged. The doors opened. A man stepped out. Expensive tailored suit, silver hair, commanding presence. Behind him, 2 younger men in equally sharp attire. All 3 moved with the kind of confidence that came from never being questioned. Vincent Barrett, the Castellano family's consigliere. He walked directly toward the lounge, didn't check in at the front desk, didn't ask for directions. The hotel staff scattered from his path like schools of fish avoiding a shark. He entered the lounge. Every conversation died. His eyes found Miranda immediately, scanned her, the soaked dress, the juice in her hair, the red stain across her pregnant belly. His jaw tightened. Then he looked at Ashley and Stephen. Gentlemen, lady, we need to have a conversation about hospitality. Ashley Bennett's smirk finally completely disappeared. Vincent Barrett didn't shake hands, didn't need to. He stood at the lounge entrance, his presence filling the space like a temperature drop. The 2 men behind him positioned themselves strategically, one by the exit, one by the service station. My name is Vincent Barrett. I represent the Castellano family's legal and business interests. Mrs. Castellano-Foster called me 20 minutes ago regarding a service issue. I'm here to understand what happened. Stephen's professionalism cracked. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Mr. Barrett, I assure you this was a simple misunderstanding. I'm not asking you. Vincent's tone stayed calm, quiet, more terrifying because of it. I'm asking her. He gestured to Miranda. Stephen made his critical mistake. He grabbed Miranda's wrist, trying to pull her up. Mrs. Foster, really, let's discuss this in my office. Vincent's hand shot out, stopped an inch from Stephen's chest. Remove your hand from my client, now. Stephen released her like she'd burned him. Mrs. Castellano-Foster, tell me what happened, from the beginning. Miranda's voice was steady, clinical. I arrived at 4:08 for a 4 o'clock reservation. I was questioned about being a guest. Protocol not applied to white guests arriving before me. I was seated at the worst table despite booking 3 weeks in advance. I was ignored for 38 minutes while other guests received full service. When I ordered, I was offered reduced service. When I documented the disparity, I was told photography violated policy. When I requested management, Mr. Palmer said the general manager was unavailable. Then Ashley Bennett poured cranberry juice on my head. And there are witnesses? 60 people saw it? Miranda looked around the room. How many will say what they actually saw? Silence. The older couple studied their napkins. The businesswoman found urgent emails. The man with the cufflinks cleared his throat. I'm sure it was an accident. Vincent pulled out a notepad. Sir, your name? The man's confidence evaporated. Why do you need my name? For subpoenas. If this goes to court, I need every witness. I didn't really see anything clearly. 30 seconds ago, you were certain it was an accident. The man stood, threw cash down, left. 2 other tables followed, witnesses fleeing accountability. Carmen Rodriguez stepped forward, phone in hand. I saw everything, and I have video. Stephen moved to intercept. Carmen, you're suspended. Vincent's voice cut through. Mr. Palmer, that young woman is a material witness. Interfering with her testimony is obstructing justice. Do you understand the legal implications? Stephen stepped back. Vincent watched Carmen's video twice. Send that to this email. He handed her a card. You'll be compensated as a witness. You'll also need an employment attorney. I'll have one contact you tomorrow. Carmen's eyes widened. Thank you. Thank Mrs. Castellano-Foster. He turned to Stephen and Ashley. Let me clarify your situation. The building this hotel occupies is owned by Castellano Enterprises. Your lease comes up for renewal in 8 months. Stephen's color drained. Additionally, the Castellano family holds a 16% stake in Grandeur Hospitality Group, your parent company. We're silent partners, but we maintain board representation. Mrs. Castellano-Foster oversees our hospitality portfolio. The implications settled like fallout. Ashley's voice strangled. She's on the board? She chairs the Ethics and Inclusion Committee. Stephen tried again, desperation making him stupid. Mr. Barrett, with respect, we serve many prominent families, board members, city officials. If this becomes public, relationships could be damaged. Perhaps discretion would be better for everyone. Are you threatening my client? No! I'm saying we can compensate Mrs. Foster generously. Complimentary stays, formal apology, but keep this internal? You're offering hush money. I'm offering reasonable resolution without publicity. You're paying her to stay quiet so you can discriminate against the next black woman who walks in. Stephen's protest died. Ashley tried tears. Mr. Barrett, I made a mistake. I'm sorry, but I have a family bills. If this becomes public, I'll lose everything. You should have considered that before pouring cranberry juice on a pregnant woman. But I didn't mean, it was just, she was being difficult. Stop talking. Every word is being remembered. If this goes to trial, everything you're saying proves intent and character. Ashley's mouth shut. Vincent's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. Excuse me, he answered, listened, glanced at Miranda. Yes, sir, she's fine. Yes, I'm handling it. Understood. He hung up, looked at Stephen and Ashley. That was Anthony Castellano, Mrs. Foster's husband. He's currently meeting with your CEO. They're discussing whether Castellano Enterprises should renew your building lease. Stephen swayed. He's also calling an emergency board meeting Monday morning. Mrs. Foster will present evidence of systematic discrimination. The board will vote on terminating management and auditing all 16 properties. The lounge was silent except for quiet jazz. Even that felt obscene. Hotel security is pulling full footage now, not just the assault. Everything from Mrs. Foster's arrival. Every interaction. Every moment she was ignored. He looked at Stephen. 38 minutes a black guest waited. How many times she asked for paid service? How many witnesses it takes before someone believes a black woman? The hotel doors opened. 3 men in suits. One carried a laptop. One carried a camera. One carried a badge. Lieutenant John Harris, NYPD. I'm here regarding a reported assault. Ashley made a wounded sound. Additionally, Vincent continued, our employment attorney is taking Carmen's statement. Our corporate counsel is drafting a formal complaint for Grandeur Hospitality Group's corporate office. Stephen found his voice. Mr. Barrett, please, can't we discuss this reasonably? We are reasonable, Mr. Palmer. You're witnessing what calm, systematic legal accountability looks like. It's not loud, it's not violent, it's thorough. The general manager, Richard Hamilton, burst from the elevator, face flushed, tie askew. Mr. Barrett, I just received a call from our CEO. Vincent gestured to Miranda, still sitting, still covered in juice, still pregnant. This is the incident. Your employee assaulted her, your manager covered it up, your staff stayed silent, and you're arriving 40 minutes later because your CEO told you to care. Richard looked at Miranda, really looked, saw the juice in her hair, the stained dress, the exhaustion. For the first time, someone from the hotel looked ashamed. Mrs. Castellano-Foster, I am profoundly sorry. Are you sorry it happened? Miranda asked quietly. Or sorry I had the power to make you care? He didn't answer. Vincent checked his watch. We have a lot to discuss, Mr. Hamilton. But first, I think Mrs. Castellano-Foster deserves to change into clean clothes. Your boutique is still open, I assume? Of course, whatever she needs. Complimentary. Miranda stood slowly. Juice dripped from her dress onto the marble floor. I don't want complimentary clothes, Mr. Hamilton. I want accountability. Real accountability. Not the kind that only appears when lawyers arrive. She walked toward the elevator. Vincent and his men followed. Ashley and Stephen stood frozen in the wreckage of their careers. The lounge guests sat in uncomfortable silence, avoiding each other's eyes. They'd all witnessed something. The question was whether they'd witnessed injustice or justice. Most were still deciding which story to tell themselves. 30 minutes later, Miranda returned to the lounge. She'd changed into clothes from the hotel boutique, simple black dress. Her hair was still damp from washing out the cranberry juice, pulled back into a sleek bun. She looked composed, professional, dangerous. The lounge had transformed in her absence. Hotel security had cordoned off her original table. A camera on a tripod was set up, filming. Lieutenant Harris stood with 2 other officers taking statements. Richard Hamilton had assembled his management team. Stephen stood apart from them, isolated. Ashley sat in a chair by the service station, face blotchy from crying. All 60 original guests remained. Not by choice. Vincent had politely requested they stay to provide witness statements. Requested, in the way that made refusing impossible. Miranda walked to the center of the lounge. Every eye turned to her. Vincent stood beside her, but slightly back. This was her show now. "I want to thank everyone for staying," Miranda began. Her voice carried easily. Lawyer-trained projection. "I know this is inconvenient. You came for tea, not a crime scene." Nervous laughter from a few tables, quickly silenced. "But I think it's important we all understand what happened here today, because what happened to me happens every day, to people who don't have Vincent Barrett on speed dial." She looked around the room, made eye contact with specific guests. "You," she pointed to the older couple. "You told me not to make a scene, as if asking for equal service was the problem, not the discrimination itself." The wife's face flushed. "You," the businesswoman. "You said you couldn't tell who started it. You couldn't, or you wouldn't?" The woman couldn't meet her eyes. "And you," the man with the cufflinks who'd fled but been stopped by Vincent's men at the door and brought back. "You said it looked like I bumped her arm. You rewrote what you saw to avoid discomfort." He stared at his hands. Miranda's voice softened, not with kindness, with something sadder. "I want you all to understand something. I didn't reveal who I was at first because I shouldn't have to. Every person deserves basic respect regardless of their name, money, or connections." She touched her wedding ring, the platinum band with its distinctive engravings. "But you all decided I didn't matter enough to defend. You saw a black woman being discriminated against, humiliated, assaulted, and you chose silence. The only reason we're having this conversation now is because I have power. What about the next black woman who walks through that door? The one who doesn't have a family attorney? The one who isn't on your parent company's board?" Silence. Heavy and uncomfortable. Vincent stepped forward. "Perhaps I should clarify for everyone exactly who Mrs. Castellano Foster is." He pulled out a tablet, brought up a presentation, projected it onto the lounge's large-screen TV that usually showed the hotel's promotional videos. Miranda Castellano Foster, Yale Law School, graduated top of her class, spent 5 years at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office prosecuting organized crime. A photo appeared. Miranda in a courtroom, younger, mid-testimony. She left prosecution to join Castellano Enterprises as chief legal counsel. She oversees the family's real estate holdings, hospitality investments, and charitable foundation. More photos. Miranda at ribbon-cutting ceremonies, at charity galas, shaking hands with the mayor. The Castellano family owns or holds controlling interest in 43 commercial properties in Manhattan, including this building. The screen showed a property deed, clear as day. Castellano Enterprises, owner of 721 Fifth Avenue. The Grandeur Plaza's address. Stephen actually moaned. Additionally, Castellano Enterprises holds a 16% stake in Grandeur Hospitality Group, making them the third-largest shareholder. Mrs. Castellano Foster sits on the board. She chairs the Ethics and Inclusion Committee. Ashley was crying openly now. "Let me put this simply," Vincent continued. "You didn't just assault a guest. You assaulted your landlord, a board member of your parent company, the person who literally reviews and approves your diversity and inclusion initiatives." He turned to Stephen. "And you, Mr. Palmer, attempted to cover it up, threatened a witness, offered hush money, all while your victim sat there 8 months pregnant, covered in cranberry juice." Richard Hamilton stepped forward. "Mrs. Castellano Foster, on behalf of Grandeur Hospitality Group, I cannot apologize enough. Stop." Miranda's voice cut through. "I don't want apologies. I want to understand something." She looked at Ashley. "Stand up, please." Ashley stood shakily. "Look at me." Ashley raised her eyes. "What did you see when I walked through that door?" Ashley's mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. "I'll tell you what you saw," Miranda said. "You saw a black woman, pregnant, carrying an expensive bag you assumed was fake, wearing a dress you decided was above her station, and you thought, she doesn't belong here. I didn't. Yes, you did. You saw my skin before you saw my reservation. You saw my face before you checked my account. You decided who I was before I said a word." Miranda's voice was steady, but there was pain underneath, real pain. I'm a lawyer. I've prosecuted mobsters. I sit on corporate boards. I run a foundation that gave $3 million to educational programs last year. I have a graduate degree from an Ivy League school, and none of that mattered because you couldn't see past my skin color. She turned to address the entire room. That's what you all need to understand. I have every privilege except one, and that one, my blackness, was enough for all of you to decide I was the problem. The society matron who'd called Miranda difficult finally spoke. Mrs. Castellano-Foster, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Are you? Miranda's gaze was sharp. Or are you sorry because you found out I have power? The woman didn't answer. Miranda continued. Here's what's going to happen. Ashley Bennett, you're fired. I'm not pressing criminal charges, but you're terminated effective immediately. Ashley collapsed back into her chair. Stephen Palmer, you're suspended pending investigation. If the investigation finds you've engaged in a pattern of discrimination, and I believe it will, you'll be terminated as well. Stephen opened his mouth to protest. Richard silenced him with a look. But that's not enough, Miranda said, because firing 2 people doesn't change a system. She looked at Richard. Grandeur Hospitality Group will implement mandatory bias training across all properties. Real training, not a video employees sleep through. Training with assessments, accountability, and consequences. Agreed, Richard said immediately. You'll establish a guest advocacy hotline that reports directly to corporate, bypassing property management. So the next time someone like Carmen tries to report discrimination, it doesn't go to the person committing it. Done. You'll conduct a full audit of service records, compare wait times, service quality, and complaint resolutions across racial demographics. I want data. You'll have it. And you'll issue a public statement, not a PR non-apology, a real acknowledgement of what happened, what went wrong, and what you're changing. Richard nodded. I'll personally oversee the statement. Miranda turned back to the witnesses. As for all of you, I want you to think about something. What has to happen before you decide someone's dignity matters more than your comfort? She pointed to the video screen now showing Carmen's footage on loop. The pour, the deliberate tilt, the liquid cascading onto Miranda's head. You all saw this, in real time, and you stayed silent. You rewrote it. You blamed me, because speaking up would have been uncomfortable. I don't need you to be heroes, Miranda continued. I just need you to be decent. The next time you see someone being treated unfairly, in a hotel, restaurant, store, anywhere, ask yourself one question. Would I stay silent if they were white? If the answer is no, then speak up. The room sat in that silence. Lieutenant Harris approached. Mrs. Castellano-Foster, I have enough witness statements. The video evidence is clear. Even without criminal charges, this will be documented officially. Thank you, Lieutenant. He nodded respectfully. For what it's worth, you handled this with more grace than most would have. Miranda smiled. Tired. I shouldn't have to handle it at all. Vincent checked his watch. Mrs. Castellano-Foster, your husband is on his way. He'd like to take you home. In a moment. She walked to Carmen, who'd been standing quietly by the bar. Thank you for speaking up, for recording, for risking your job. Carmen's eyes welled up. It was the right thing. It was, and it cost you. That's not fair. Life's not fair. No, but we can make it more fair. Miranda handed her a card. That's my direct number. Call me tomorrow. I meant what Vincent said. You'll have a job, a better one. Carmen took the card with shaking hands. Thank you. Miranda turned one last time to the lounge, to the 60 witnesses who would tell this story for years. I hope you all remember today. Not because I got justice, but because I only got it because I had power. That's the problem we need to fix. She walked toward the elevator. Vincent and his men followed. Ashley sat weeping. Stephen stood in stunned silence. Richard Hamilton pulled out his phone, already making calls, and 60 guests sat with their cold tea and untouched scones, confronting their own complicity. The lounge would never feel the same again. Richard Hamilton didn't wait for Monday's board meeting. By 6 p.m., he'd assembled an emergency team in the executive boardroom. Corporate counsel, HR director, director of operations, and Miranda, still in her borrowed black dress, Vincent at her side. The security footage played on 3 screens. Camera 1, main entrance, Miranda at 4:08. 3 white guests entering after her, walking directly to tables. No questions. Camera 2, host stand. Ashley intercepting Miranda. Arms crossed, tray as barrier. Audio captured her skeptical tone. Are you staying with us? Camera 3, lounge floor, wide angle. Miranda seated at 4:15. The timestamp tracked every minute she waited. 4:20, 4:30, 4:40. Other guests arriving after her served immediately. Then the moment, crystal clear from 3 angles, Ashley reaching across, the glass tilting. Not an accident, controlled precision, ice and cranberry juice cascading onto Miranda's head, her pregnant belly, Ashley's expression, satisfaction. Play it again, Richard said. Slow motion. They watched 5 times. Each viewing made it worse. There's no ambiguity, the corporate counsel said. This is assault, aggravated by pregnancy, 60 witnesses. Richard looked at Miranda. What do you want? Real change, not PR, actual reform. Specifics. Miranda had prepared this. Being assaulted didn't stop her being a lawyer. First, Ashley Bennett terminated immediately. No severance, no references. Richard nodded to HR. Done. Second, Stephen Palmer suspended. Full investigation into his management. Pull complaint records. Interview staff. If there's a pattern, termination. Agreed. Third, Carmen Rodriguez receives back pay for suspension, plus promotion to Director of Inclusive Service Excellence. Starting salary $78,000. She leads the training program. That's significant, the HR director started. She risked her job for truth. That's exactly who should lead inclusion. Done, Richard said. Fourth, mandatory bias training. In-person sessions, monthly for first year, quarterly after, with assessments. Fail, you're terminated. Fifth, guest advocacy hotline. Reports to corporate and external ombudsman. Someone who can't be pressured. I'll have names tomorrow. Sixth, quarterly audits. Track service metrics by demographics. Wait times, complaints, seating. If disparities emerge, immediate intervention. Richard scribbled notes. What else? Public statement, names what happened, uses discrimination, acknowledges it was racial, calls it what it is. I'll draft tonight. You approve before release. Miranda leaned forward. One more thing. Ashley gets counseling, 3 months, focused on racial bias. Not because she deserves it, because sending her out unchanged means she'll do this to someone else. Hotel funded? HR asked. Yes. If she completes it and shows growth, fine. If she refuses, that goes in her employment record. Richard considered. That's generous. It's practical. Punishment alone doesn't change people. Vincent added quietly. Though if Miss Bennett assaults anyone else anywhere, the Castellano family will hear about it. Our generosity ends. The threat hung heavy. Understood, Richard said. Lieutenant Harris spoke from the corner. Mrs. Castellano Foster, you're declining criminal charges? Yes. Even with overwhelming evidence? Yes. Criminal charges mean probation, anger, no growth. I'd rather she spend time in therapy, learning why she saw me as disposable. Harris nodded. You're right. I'll close as victim declined, but the report stays on file. Good. Richard cleared his throat. Mrs. Castellano Foster, I'm deeply sorry this happened. Not sorry you have power to hold us accountable. Sorry it happened at all. Then prove it. Follow through. Don't let this become a crisis management story. Make it the beginning of actual change. You have my word. Words are easy, Mr. Hamilton. I'll be watching the data. Vincent stood. We're done. Mrs. Castellano Foster needs rest. Miranda stood carefully, exhausted, still feeling cranberry juice residue the shower hadn't quite reached. At the door, Richard called out, Mrs. Castellano Foster? She turned. What you said about only getting justice because you had power. You're right. I'm going to spend the next year building systems so the next person doesn't need your power to be heard. Miranda studied his face, looked for performance, found something that might be sincerity. Then we'll talk in a year. Let's see if your systems work. She left. Vincent paused at the door. Gentlemen, lady, I'll be monitoring personally. The Castellano family takes its investment seriously. Mrs. Castellano Foster is our most valuable asset. Disappoint her and you'll answer to people far less patient. He didn't wait for response. In the boardroom, 5 executives sat silent. The footage looped, over and over. Ice and juice. Miranda's face, Ashley's satisfaction. How did we let this happen? The HR director whispered. We didn't let it happen, Richard said quietly. We created the environment where it could. That's worse. Outside, Miranda climbed into a black town car. Vincent held the door. Inside, her husband Anthony waited. Graying temples, eyes that had seen too much violence to be surprised by cruelty. He pulled her close. She cried. Finally, the tears she'd held through documentation, confrontation, negotiation. "They called you trash," Anthony said quietly. "Said you weren't fit for their space." "I know. Say the word and I make them disappear." "Anthony, I'm serious. They hurt you. My pregnant wife. There are consequences." She pulled back. "The consequences are system change, policy reform. That's how we win." "That's how you win. I want them to hurt. They are hurting. You should have seen their faces when Vincent revealed who I was. Not enough. It has to be enough, because the alternative is we become what they think we are." Anthony was silent, then nodded. "You're too good for this family." "I'm exactly right for this family. That's why you married me." He smiled despite everything. "True." The car pulled away from the Grandeur Plaza. Behind them, the hotel glittered in twilight. 5 stars of Manhattan luxury. Inside, 60 witnesses were going home to tell the story. Some would tell it honestly. Some would reshape it to ease guilt. Some would convince themselves they'd tried to help. But they'd all remember. And maybe, just maybe, some would act differently next time. That was the hope. Behind tinted windows, Miranda rested her head on Anthony's shoulder, her hand on her pregnant belly. Their daughter kicked once, strong and insistent. "She's restless," Anthony said. "She felt everything today, the adrenaline, the fear, the anger. What will you tell her about this when she's older?" Miranda thought about that. "I'll tell her the truth, that the world isn't fair, that people will judge her before she speaks, but that she has the power to demand better, and the responsibility to build systems so the next girl doesn't need that power. She'll be extraordinary, like her mother. She'll be free. Be freer than I was. That's all I want." The car merged into evening traffic. Manhattan lights blurred past. Tomorrow would bring interviews, statements, the beginning of actual work. But tonight, Miranda let herself be tired. Let herself be held. Let herself be human. She'd been strong enough today. Tomorrow she'd be strong again. 4 weeks later. The Grandeur Plaza looked the same from outside. Same brass doors, same marble, same chandeliers. Inside, everything had changed. Elena Washington, the new lounge manager, stood at the host stand. Black woman, early 40s, formerly a civil rights nonprofit director. She'd implemented new protocols immediately. Every guest greeted identically, every reservation honored, every complaint escalated within 5 minutes. Carmen Rodriguez walked past in her new role. Director of Inclusive Service Excellence, $78,000 a year. She carried a tablet monitoring staff interactions. When a server hesitated before approaching a black family, she intervened. "They've been waiting 3 minutes. That's our maximum. Go." The server went, smiled, provided excellent service. Carmen made a note. Additional training needed, but the family would never know there'd been a problem. Stephen Palmer was gone. The investigation found 23 complaints from guests of color over 2 years, all dismissed as misunderstandings. Terminated week 2. Ashley Bennett worked retail in Queens now, $16 an hour instead of $35 with tips, apartment downgraded, car sold. Social life evaporated when the story went viral. But twice weekly, she sat in therapy. "What did you see when you looked at Miranda Foster?" her counselor asked. Ashley cried. "Someone who didn't belong." "Why?" The answer took 2 more sessions. "Because she was black and I thought this place was for people like me." She volunteered at a Harlem community center now, served food, helped with programs, listened to elderly black women's stories about being refused service decades ago. Mrs. Dorothy Jackson, 83, was kind. "You did wrong, but you're here." "Is it enough?" "No, but it's a start. Question is whether you'll keep starting." Ashley didn't know yet, but she was trying. The story went viral. Grandeur juice trended 3 days. Think pieces proliferated. Investigations exposed discrimination patterns at luxury hotels nationwide. 6 chains scrambled to implement reforms. Grandeur issued a real statement. Not corporate non-apology. Actual acknowledgement. On September 16th, a guest was subjected to discriminatory treatment and assault. "We failed. Here's what we're changing." Specifics listed, training, advocacy systems, quarterly metrics. Miranda had approved it, barely. Not perfect, but honest. She'd given birth 3 weeks after. Healthy daughter. Isabella, 8 pounds, 6 ounces. Maternity leave hadn't stopped her work. She launched the Dignity Initiative, a legal nonprofit funding discrimination cases for people without attorneys on speed dial. Castellano Foundation committed $10 million over 5 years. Other donors followed. Miranda reviewed cases from home, Isabella sleeping beside her desk. A black woman denied housing. A Latino man passed over for promotion. A Muslim woman told to remove her hijab. Cases that would have been dismissed, now fought publicly. Changing the world from a nursery? Anthony asked. Trying. She deserves better than I got. You got justice. I got justice because I had power. That's not justice, that's privilege. The hotel sent monthly reports. Wait times, complaints, service quality across demographics. Disparities shrinking. Slowly. Measurably. Carmen called sometimes. Caught another one. Server seated a black couple near kitchen. We corrected immediately. Prime seating, servers in retraining. Progress. Exhausting. Fighting battles every day. You're winning. After 6 months, Richard Hamilton requested a meeting. Neutral restaurant. Discrimination complaints down 72%. Satisfaction from guests of color up 48%. Management turnover decreased 31%. What about culture? Changing. Slowly. Terminated 3 more managers for dismissing complaints. Promoted 5 people of color to leadership. Resistance is real, but decreasing. Why tell me this? Because I want you to know we're following through. Not performance, ongoing work. Good, keep going, I'm still watching. I know, that's why it's working. Outside, Manhattan moved relentlessly. Millions of people, thousands of interactions, countless moments choosing dignity or discrimination. Grandeur Plaza was one hotel, one story, one moment of accountability. But stories spread. Data influences policy. One person's courage becomes another's roadmap. Miranda checked her phone. Text from Carmen. Just stopped another incident. Staff member questioned black doctor checking in. Team intervened immediately. Doctor received upgrade and apology. Staff member in mandatory retraining. Progress. Imperfect, incomplete, but real. Isabella stirred in her bassinet. Miranda picked her up. Your world will be better, she whispered. Not because Mama had power, because Mama used it to change systems. The baby grabbed her finger, held tight. Outside, the city glittered, full of hotels and restaurants and stores where people were still being judged by their skin, but also full of Carmen Rodriguez's, Elena Washington's, people who saw wrong and intervened. The work wasn't finished. It had barely begun, but it had begun. 6 months later, Miranda walked into a different hotel. Boston, high-end. Isabella in a carrier against her chest. A young black man at the host stand looked up. Welcome. Do you have a reservation? Her heart sank. Here we go again. But his smile was genuine, professional. Just protocol. We ask everyone. I see you here. Mrs. Castellano Foster, 2 p.m. Perfect timing. Your table by the window is ready, and congratulations on your beautiful baby. One hotel, one interaction, one moment of being seen. Not because of her name, he'd asked before checking the reservation, but because someone somewhere learned something. Change is slow, frustratingly slow. For every Miranda with power, thousands can't demand accountability, but change is cumulative. Every person who speaks up, every staff member who intervenes, every policy that shifts from words to action. Share this story. Comment with your experiences. Subscribe for more stories that challenge and inspire. Because the next Miranda shouldn't need mob connections to be treated with basic human dignity. That's on all of us.